Hey, this is Eric with Just Add Power, and in this video, we're looking at how to control a Just Add Power AMP VLAN system with Control4. Let's get started. So we're starting with our Composer project, where we've already added all of our sources to the rack. We've got a few sources sitting in here, and we've added a couple of televisions to rooms in other parts of the system. We don't have the Just Add Power drivers loaded yet because we don't have them in the database. They're not part of Control4's database. So the first thing we have to do is we got to download them from the Just Add Power support site. So we're going to head on over to the support site. That gives us support.justaddpower.com. We're going to scroll down to the control system section. Here we go. And we're looking for Control4. Now we do have to match the driver with the type of system that we have. We have an AMP VLAN system, so we're going to grab the driver for the Control4 AMP VLAN system. There's a lot of good information about the driver, but for now, all we're looking to do is download that and get that in our Composer project. So we're going to grab that. We've got two drivers, so we're going to take the first group of C4Z files. We're going to put them in our Control4 drivers folder. There they are, right there. I'm going to go back into our terminal server. I'm going to grab that one, move that down into the driver as well, driver folder. There it is. And we've got our drivers in our Composer project now. We're good to head back over to Composer at this point, and we're going to head over to the items on the right side. We're going to search for our drivers. Easiest way for me has just been to go to manufacturer. You look for Just Add Power as the manufacturer, and there are all of our drivers listed. We're working in an AMP VLAN system, so we're going to be choosing one of the drivers that ends with jpsw. That's our switching architecture for an AMP VLAN system. You'll notice that there are lots of different sizes of driver. We've got an 8x8 all the way up to a 128 by 128. What these numbers indicate are the number of inputs and outputs available in the driver. So if you have a system that's 8x8 or smaller, you can use the 8x8 driver. If you've got a system that is 8x8 or smaller, you can also use the 128 by 128 driver. Think of the driver size as the maximum size of the system. So you'll have a lot of unused inputs and outputs if you use the 128 by 128, but you have the ability to grow to up to 128 by 128. That's inputs and outputs. You definitely don't want to pick a system that is smaller, or driver that is smaller than the system you're eventually going to build. So we're going to do the 32 by 32. It's a nice medium size. We're probably not going to exceed this, but if we thought we were, I'd just move up to the 64 by 64. So I'm going to take this driver and I'm going to add it to our rack area. Now we've got to configure the driver. The main properties page is only going to give us the status and information about the driver. So in order to configure it, because it's an IP driver, we've got to go to Connections, and we've got to go to Network. And right here where we've got our address, we need to put, because it's an AMP VLAN system, the IP address of a Just Add Power transmitter or receiver in the system. We're going to use 172.27.1.1. But if you don't know what that is, we go over here to our report file that we got when we ran AMP VLAN, and we've got all of the addresses of our receivers, all the addresses of our transmitters. Any one of these can be our control receiver. So we just need the IP of one of them. So we're going to use 172.27.1.1. There it is. Close that down. Pops up as online. Now if we go back to system design, we're going to log in from our properties, and we've got an operational system, 8 inputs, 8 outputs on one switch. So the switching driver is configured. The last thing we have to do with the switching driver is we have to connect inputs and outputs to our sources and our displays in the system. We do that in Connections. We're on the Control AV section. We've got our Just Add Power driver, and we've got our inputs up to 32 HDMI inputs. If you had an audio transmitter or receiver from Just Add Power, you'd use the analog inputs, but we're not going to use those. We have all HDMIs. And then we have our HDMI outputs. These are our TVs. So we're going to start by connecting input 1. And I've got 6 sources that are the option. The question is, which one of these is input 1? Well, input 1 in Composer is transmitter 1 in our report file. So in this system, it is the transmitter connected to switch 1, port 9 is input 1. And I know in this system, that is my Apple TV. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to connect that to my Apple TV. And they're actually just in order like that. So transmitter in port 10, DirecTV, then my Roku, then my PlayStation, and then my Xbox. So there's only 5 sources. We're designed for up to 8 transmitters, but I only have 5 present. So I do have some room for expansion. We're going to do the exact same thing for our outputs. And this is again going to depend where the receivers are located. So the receiver in port 1, switch 1, is my room 1 TV. So we're going to go output 1. My room 1 TV is my IR TV. So we're going to find the IR TV. And it is HDMI 1 on the IR TV. Drag that down. Display 2 is our room 2 RS-232 TV, HDMI 1. And we've got room 3, our CEC TV. Whoops. There we go. Scroll back down. Output 3 to our CEC TV. There it is. So we've connected our inputs and our outputs according to our report file. At this point, switching works. Our driver is fully configured. But if at this point your driver is not working, the most likely reason, we have 2 common problems in Control4 when we see installers have issues with getting the driver functioning. Number 1 is you never get to this operational 8x8 state. And the reason for that is that after you run AMP VLAN, you need a static route in the system. So we have to be able to get to the Just Add Power devices at their IP address. The way to do that, we need the static route information from your report file, and we have to actually log into the router in the system. We have to go to network, routing, and we have to add a static route. So here's our 172.27 static route, exactly as it's printed in the report file. So we've got that added to our router. So that's step 1 for getting to operational 8x8. If you don't have that route, it's never going to print operational 8x8. The second most common mistake we see on Control4 when doing this is that the inputs and the outputs are bound incorrectly. A common mistake is input 1 here is an Apple TV, but our first input is actually on port 9. So what we'll see on accident is we will see installers want to put the Apple TV on input 9 because port 9, they think input 9, which is an understandable mistake. But because we don't know what port the devices are going to be on before we build the system, we always go by the input number when matching to Control4. So because it's the device labeled as input 1 or transmitter 1 in Composer, it is input 1 as well. And the same thing for the outputs. The outputs are 1, 2, and 3, which luckily for us in this system are actually ports 1, 2, and 3, so it matches. Those are the 2 most common mistakes we see in Composer systems. So now we're going to move on to the second Just Add Power driver that you might have in your system. And the second one is optional. The second one is mainly used if you're trying to control 2 categories of devices. The first category is going to be controlling televisions or sources through Just Add Power. And that would mean the Just Add Power device, let's say a receiver, is sending IR commands to a television, or sending RS-232 commands, or sending CEC commands to a television or a source. In that case, you add a RS-232 IP server driver for each television in the system. The second instance that you would add a driver is if you're doing one of our features like video wall or tiling layout control. So we're going to look at each one of those one by one and how to set them up. We'll start with controlling a display over IR. The first thing to do is to add the driver for the actual television in the room to the room in your project. That causes the driver that you add first in connections to actually show up as the video and audio endpoint. This triggers what commands get sent. So we need the IR commands from the driver to pass through. So we've got that added, it's connected properly. Now, the second thing we add to that room is we add the Just Add Power RS-232 IP server. Add that right in there. Name it Just Add Power IR driver. And there's only two things we need to do to configure this driver. First thing, so we need to tell it we're doing IR. So we've got three options. We've got IR version 1, that's the IR dongle V1, which almost nobody has. The IR dongle version 2, which is what you're using if you are working with a 3G system, and the IRD. And then the max color IR option if you've got a max color system. This system is IR V2, so we're going to select that one. And then we need to set the IP address of the Just Add Power receiver behind that television. Again, if we've forgotten, it's on our report file. This is our very first TV. So we're going to take the IP address from that, paste it in, and set. Now you're not going to see any operational mode change other than a really brief connect disconnect to make sure this is only going to change when you're actually sending a command. So that's part one. We've got our serial IR and our IP address. The second thing we're doing is we're going to connections. And on this, there is an IR transmitter, and we're going to connect it to the IR TV's IR receiver. Now, when Control4 goes to send IR commands to that television, it's not going to use an IR port on the Control4 processor. It's going to send that off to the Just Add Power receiver through the IR port on the Just Add Power device to the television. Now let's look at how to control a television with RS-232. Same as IR, we're going to add the driver for the television that's actually in the room first. That ensures that it gets added as the endpoint for that room so that those commands get used when they hit the button for the room. So once that driver's been added, we're going to add a Just Add Power RS-232 IP server to that room as well. We'll name it Just Add Power RS-232 driver. And we've got to do two things in the property windows to configure this. We have to set our serial IR selection to serial because we're doing serial. Then we're going to set our baud rate to match the baud rate of the television. Now, most televisions are going to be 9600, 8, 1, and none, or 8 and 1, depending on the order. Does it need a keep alive, meaning something to make sure that the TV doesn't fall asleep? You can set that however you'd like. And then the last thing we're doing is setting the IP address to the IP of the Just Add Power receiver behind the television. If you don't remember what that is, we go back to our report file. We remember that this is output number 2 in our system. So we're grabbing the IP address for output 2, putting it right there, and setting it. You're not going to see operational mode change other than a very brief message here. So we do have our serial connected. It's doing its thing. And if you're looking at the TV, it'll actually reboot the television in that setting. It's going to apply the serial settings to the Just Add Power device as well. The last thing we have to do is we have to go into our connections. And we're not using a serial port on the Control4 processor. We're using the serial port on the Just Add Power driver. We're going to connect it to the serial port on the TV. This ensures that when Control4 sends serial commands, it's sending them out the IP port to the Just Add Power device and not one of the Control4 processor's serial ports if you have them. And that's RS-232. It's done. The last type of endpoint control would be CEC control, and it's very different from IR and RS-232 because there is no television driver in a CEC control. All CEC commands are the same, so it doesn't matter whether you have a Sony or an LG or a Panasonic, Toshiba, Samsung television in that room. The commands are the same, so you don't need to load the actual Samsung TV driver or whatever. You just load a single Just Add Power RS-232 IP server, and that's what we've got here in the room. Once we've done that, we leave our serial IR selection to none because we're not using serial or IR, and we do the same thing we did with the others. We go to our project file, we find the receiver that's for that room, copy that IP address, set it in, and set. Now, we don't have to make any connections because we've already made that Just Add Power driver the endpoint for the HDMI in that room. So if we look at that room, that CEC TV, and we'll just rename this so that it's clear. Just Add Power CEC TV. So that is us. That is not a television driver from the system. And that is our endpoint for the room. The next thing we're going to look at is how to set up a video wall with the Just Add Power drivers. There's a lot of ways to do this. This is just one of the options available. So we're going to start by adding ourselves a new room in our system. We're going to call it the video wall room. Oh, apparently I know how this works. All right, video wall room. And we're going to add the same things we typically add to the room. So if I'm doing IR control of the TV, I'm going to add some IR TVs. If I was doing serial, I'm going to add serial TVs. Let's do the IR. Doesn't really matter. Let's go Sony. We're going to build a 2x2 wall. So we're going to build 4 of those TVs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boop. We'll rename this top left Sony because we've got 4 TVs in our wall. Top right Sony. Just got a nice little 2x2. Bottom left Sony. Bloop. And bottom right Sony. All right, so we've got our actual televisions we're going to be controlling. The second thing we need to do is we need to get Just Add Power drivers, because what we're doing is we're controlling video wall layouts. And so we have to control the Just Add Power devices to do the zooming necessary to build our video wall. So we're going to need 4 RS-232 IP servers as well. 3, 4. We'll rename them as well. Top left J plus P. Learn to spell. Bottom right J plus B. All right, and then we're going to do the exact same thing we do for everything else. So we're going to put the IP addresses for the receivers in the wall. So we've got our first 3 TVs. We've got 172.27.1.4 because that's our next TV. We haven't connected these guys yet. We're going to set that. 172.27.1.5. Set. 172.27.1.6. Set. 172.27.1.7. Set. And again, we're getting that all from our project file. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we have to also connect this to our switching driver because these are new displays in our system that didn't exist before. We're going to go down to outputs. We got output number 4 is our top left Sony. Where's our top left Sony? Scroll. There it is. Top left Sony. And we've got our top right Sony HDMI 1. Bottom left Sony and bottom right Sony HDMI 1. So there's our outputs connected. Remember, we're connecting the television itself, not the Just Add Power driver, because we want to be controlling the actual television when we do switching. So our drivers are configured. If we were doing IR as well, we would connect IR, but these TVs seem to be IP. Oh no, they're IR. IR, so we'll connect those as well. Top left to top left Sony. Top right to top right Sony. Bottom left to bottom left Sony. Bottom right to bottom right Sony. That's not part of the video wall. That's just because they're IR TVs. You probably want to control them as well. So now that we've got all those connections, now we get to the video wall part. We're going to go to agents. We're going to make sure we have macros and custom buttons added to our system, because these are the things we're going to need in order to make the video wall work. Macros are going to do our into and out of layouts, and it's going to do our source switching, and custom buttons is going to give you the ability to actually put those macros on your interface. So we're going to add a couple of macros. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go 2x2 full wall. And that's a macro that will put all of the 4 TVs into a single image. We're also going to add 2x2 single screen, and that's going to split the wall apart into individual displays. So you're going to have either all 4 TVs as one big display or all 4 TVs as individual displays. We're also going to need to add a couple of macros to do the Apple TV full wall. So we're going to switch so that all 4 of the televisions can watch the Apple TV. And then we'll pair these macros together a little bit later. Full wall. Just use those 2 as examples. All right, so we've got our build a wall, single screen, and switching sources. We're going to now go down to programming, and this is where the magic happens. We're going to go down to our macros. We're going to start with our 2x2 full wall macro. So what this has to do is it has to build the 4 TVs into a single wall. And the way we have to do that is we actually have to do that with 4 individual commands, 1 to each receiver behind the television. So we're going to start with the top left, just add power TV. We're going to go down here to device specific commands. We're going to go to basic video wall mode change. Let's make this a little bigger so you can actually read it. So the number of rows in my wall is there are 2 rows. There are 2 columns in my wall. And because this is the top left TV, it is row 1, column 1. So I've got 2, 2, 1, 1. Take the little arrow, drag it over. We have to do this once for each receiver in the wall. So we're going top right, device commands, mode change. It's still a 2x2 wall, but the top right TV is in row 1, column 2. I'm going to click away from it. 1, 2. Bottom left TV, device specific, mode change, still a 2x2. Bottom left TV is going to be row 2, column 1, drag over. And the bottom right TV is going to be 2x2, row 2, column 2. Drag that over. And now I have the macro to build the wall. Now, all this does is zooms in so that each of the 4 televisions in the corner are showing 1/4 of the overall picture. That's not enough to actually get the wall to show everything, because if I'm watching 4 different sources on those 4 different TVs, at this point I'm getting the corner of 4 different sources. So this is our full wall macro, but we have to pair it with a source switching. So we're going to go to Apple TV full wall, and this is just going to do source switching. So we've got to go up to our switching driver. And the switching driver has a multi-display switching function. So we're going to go all the way down to the bottom as soon as it loads. Device specific command, and I'm going to do switch multiple outputs. So my Apple TV, based on my connections, my Apple TV is input number 1. So I'm saying input 1, and my outputs, does anybody remember? My outputs for the wall are outputs 4, 5, 6, and 7. So input 1 to outputs 4 through 7. Drag that over, and that is my switching macro to set all 4 TVs to the Apple TV. We're going to do that one more time with the DirecTV. All we have to change is what is my DirecTV. DirecTV is input 2. It's the same 4 displays. Input 2 to outputs 4 through 7. So those are my switching macros. To get all of that to work on a single button, we go back to our custom buttons. In our video wall room, we're going to add a button that says DirecTV. Oh, sorry, no, Apple TV. DirecTV. Menu name is going to be video wall. All right, go down to our programming, custom buttons, video wall menu. When you press the Apple TV button, it's going to do 2 things. It is going to do the 2x2 full wall, and it's going to switch to Apple TV. When I press the DirecTV button, same thing. It's going to do 2x2 full wall, and it's going to do the DirecTV source. And then the last thing, we need to give them a button to go back into single screen mode. So we'll go back to our video wall. We'll go to a third button. We'll do single screens. Go to our programming. And when they hit the single screens, it does the 2x2 single screen macro. And then at this point, It's up to you what you'd like it to do. If they were all watching the DirecTV and they execute this macro, it's going to have 4 TVs watching a single view of the DirecTV. So what we could also do is we could go down to our device-specific commands, and we could set the 4 TVs to 4 different kind of default sources, and then give them the ability to choose what source they want on each TV through another mechanism. But at least we're back into single screen mode at this point. You can use the switch multiple outputs, and we would do input 1 to output 4, input 2 to output 5, input 3 to output 6, and input 4 to output 7. So that just at least gives us 4 different sources on the 4 TVs when we go to single screen. You can set those to whatever you'd like to. But that's how you both build and break down a video wall through Just Add Power. Next, we're going to add tiling control to our project. A couple of things we've already added is we've added a generic HDMI source to the system. We used the PC UI button. This is going to represent the tiling transmitter in the system because it has an HDMI output that we can connect it to the driver. We've also added 4 of the Just Add Power RS-232 IP server drivers. Those are going to act as the receivers, essentially the windows in the tiling transmitter. There's 4 windows in the tiling transmitter. But all those are just for HDMI connections, so we can actually switch sources on them. In order to do layout control, we have to add one more Just Add Power RS-232 IP server, and this is to control the tiling layout. We'll just go ahead and name it tiling layout control. Wait for it to finish loading into the system. There we go. We got our tiling layout control. And the IP address here is going to be the most important part. So we're going to go to our project file. We've expanded this system a little bit. So we've got our 3G plus 4 plus transmitter here on input number 6. We need the IP address of that transmitter. I'm going to put that right in here because it's the tiling transmitter board that IP is needed to do layout control. So the tiler has 5 IPs, 4 receivers, 1 transmitter, but we use the transmitter for layout control. So we've got that in there. We also can go down to our receivers. Same thing with our project file. Our tiling receivers are 1.8 to 1.11, so we'll put those in. 8. We don't really use these IPs, but it's good to have them just in case you need to. For example, if you have to rotate the video in the tiler, you want to do some cool layouts, you need to have IPs for them so you can do feature stuff. All right, so, sorry, that's wrong. 172.27, 111. Hope I didn't do that on another one. Nope. 10.9.8. Perfect. So we've got all our IPs set up. We've got our HDMI acting as the input. And now we're going to go to connections. We're going to make all of our connections. So we're going to select our driver. We got input number 6 is our laptop PC. Actually, let's go ahead and rename that. Tiling HDMI. All right, we've got our tiling HDMI, and then we've got to go down to our outputs. And again, from our report file, our tiling outputs are 8, 9, 10, and 11. Back into Composer, output 8 is going to be tiling window 1, output 9, tiling window 2, 10, tiling window 3, 11, tiling window 4. So now we have all our bindings so that I can select the tiling to show on my other televisions in the system, and then I can change what's actually in each one of the windows on the tiler. Next, we need to do our programming to be able to do the layouts for the tiling. So we've got our agents. We've already got our macros built. We're going to add a couple of macros. We're going to go tiling quad layout. We'll add tiling primary top layout, tiling primary left layout, and let's do a picture, tiling picture in picture. Give us 4 possible layouts. Once we got our macros set up, we're going to go to programming. We'll go down to our macros. And we'll do our quad layout first. So on the right side, we're going to find our tiling layout control driver. And just like everything else, we're going in device-specific command, but we're going to a console command advanced. There's no tiling control built into this driver at the moment, so we're actually entering custom commands from our tiling manual. So we got to figure out those commands. We're going to go to support site. Head down to the tiling transmitter section. We have a 3G tiler. We go to our how-to. Got some good information here, but we're going to do a couple of standard layouts. So we're going to start with our standard layout. So our command is going to be 4-in-1 layout and then a number afterwards. We're going to start with the quad, so we're going to need a 4. So we're actually going to grab this function right here, go back into Composer, paste that layout, and that is our quad tiling layout. Put that right over there. We also want a primary top. Back to our layout. Primary top is 3. So we'll go change that to a 3. Drag that over. We want a primary left. Primary left. Left is layout 2. Change that to a 2. And then we want to do a picture-in-picture, which is a custom layout. So we're going to scroll down to our custom API. And there's a whole setup here for how to build those layouts, but it probably would be easier since we're doing a picture-in-picture. Let's just copy a pre-built layout. So we've got a bottom right picture-in-picture layout right here. And we've got our command that builds it. We'll just copy that, put that in our advanced, and paste that layout. So that's one of our custom layouts. Move that over. And now I have functions to be able to change to 4 different possible layouts, either standard or custom layout through Control4. Now we just need to set up source switching. I'll let you do that on your own. And we're pretty much done with tiling. I hope this video was useful for setting up Control4 to manage a Just Add Power AMP VLAN system. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at support, and thanks for watching.